Hello. I wanted to make a video about DLSS because that's the awesome new topic. I just wanted to provide some thoughts because I feel like something weird is happening. I usually respect Philip's opinion, but in this case, not a big fan of what he's saying here. I still think he's being somewhat fair. Of course, like the death threats and everything are unacceptable. But this video is also just going to be all over the place because it's just a quick opinion piece because everyone loves opinions. I want to share my opinion because I feel like people are kind of overlooking. This is a very polarizing and controversial topic. I want to say up front that, and I hope people understand this when I say it, I am generally in favor of AI, but at the same time, I'm surrounded by people who hate it to death, and I absolutely understand their perspective. I think there's a lot of benefits to AI in numerous ways, but I also think that in our current climate of how corporations exist, it is being done in the worst way possible. To hopefully shorten the video and kind of summarize, Digital Foundry made a video going over their first impressions of it, and a lot of the criticisms, granted I didn't watch the entire video, only watched the first like 3 or 4 minutes because after that, that's all I needed to kind of get their opinion on it. They kind of just gave it a resounding approval and kind of praised it, even though more than half of the examples they provided fundamentally like changed the lighting, changed the color of the scene and whatnot. And then Philip came out to, both in his original video and then especially this video, because this video is titled that DLSS 5 has shown that discourse is dead. And I disagree. I mean, I understand the whole perspective of the death threats and things, but it feels almost as though he's using the death threats as a reason to dismiss pretty much any criticism of it. He did kind of start to point out some things in his video about what aspects of it are not as good as they could be. But to me, it still was not critical enough. There are numerous examples. Like if I click through this video real quick and go to, so in this original one, kind of the point that people are upset about, and I agree with, is it's too stylized. Sure, there might be some limitations here of the natural lighting can only go so far, but you can see her entire face is being lit unnaturally well compared to the environment. I feel like the environment here did a much better job. You can also see like some reflections here in the hair and possibly even subsurface scattering that kind of gets annihilated in the AI one. There's a much darker version of her hair that doesn't exist in the original. What else? You can see that the colors of her jacket are fundamentally different. The background in its entirety is just, there's no fog anymore. This light is really dim in the AI example. This, I mean, I guess that's probably someone passing by, but the lighting here, different entirely. Like there's clearly a light source over here, but it just gets erased. And this is actually one of the better ones, I think. Like this was a good one that was showing off the technology. This one as well, you can also see like the reflection in the eyes changed quite a lot. The shape of his face and the way the lighting is, like this lighting is very, like there's a light clearly kind of on the side and back here, but then in this one, there's lighting on his forehead that doesn't exist in the original. The shape of his face in just general is changed. Like his eyelids are in here his eyelids are pretty thin, but then his eyelids might grow much thicker. The shape of his ear somewhat changes a little bit because of the lighting, and like it's just kind of like, yeah, his face is wider. This one is extra bad because it could be good, except that this is literally just like an old version of AI image generation. If you know what I mean, like it is so unnaturally sharp. You can also see some gnarly artifacting here. All the colors change. Like clearly there's a light source shining this way, but then that just kind of gets erased again. In this example on the shirt, let's see. This one, I'm not a big fan of. In this one, what can I really say? Like, it's so contrasty. The lighting is so different. the colors of the jacket and everything, and the red on the vest, red gets like desaturated and darkened. And it's just like, it's one thing to improve detail, but it's another thing to completely fundamentally change the brightness values and the color values and many of the details on the image. Like, his lips are way more red. And I can probably go on and on with this. There's like, this one is one of the ones, this is one of the ones where it's like, it's okay. It's pretty good. It's pretty solid. It retains a lot of detail. Nothing much has changed, but you can also see here, like in the background, like this flower, right? There's no fringe or like edge on it, but then in the AI one, there's totally an edge. It looks like it's photoshopped in, right? Everything is so much brighter, you know, like this is another one of those things where they use contrast to make it like look good, and it just doesn't. It's kind of a problem that AI filters had for a long time, is the super high contrast. I do like overall, like the hair looks really good, especially the eyebrows. Here, not really wearing that much eyeshadow or anything, but it just kind of decides to add some extra, which is a pretty common theme. Her lips are way more red. Her lips also kind of larger. The depth of the shadows on her wrinkles here are insane. Like, there's just a lot that is going wrong here. And Philip kind of went on to say, like he did point out some problems or whatever, but I feel like the perspective I have is that he so specifically biased towards praising the technology almost as a reaction against all the death threats and stuff, especially even to himself that people have been getting. And again, like, I should be clear, that's totally unacceptable, right? But there's a reason people are so upset, right? And this is kind of what I wrote in a comment before. There's two aspects to this. There's a primary problem, and then there's a greater theme, right? The primary problem is this was released now. It was released at a technical conference, right? Where, for all intents and purposes, Jensen Huang went into explicit detail on a lot of different things AI related, right? Which is crazy, right? Well, it's good because there is a lot of technical aspects that he was describing about, like, what NVIDIA will be doing in the future with all these types of technologies. And I think overall, like, it is impressive what NVIDIA is doing, but they mentioned OpenAI and Palantir so many times I can barely even count. Like, they kept mentioning them over and over again for some reason. And I didn't even finish a talk. Like, I think he said it at least 12 times. It was kind of insane. Like, I don't know why he was saying OpenAI so much. But also, like, this isn't planned to release for at least another year. And in the description, they were talking about, like, of the technology, like the description of technology, they were talking about how this provides artistic control because it uses game state and game data like vectors and material information, which is great. Like, that's great on paper, but how come they did not show that at all? Right? How come they didn't show it in any form? Like, that's kind of NVIDIA's whole thing, is like they show the technical aspects, especially at these tech conferences, of these tools, yet here they are literally only showing the AI, like the results of the AI, and half of them look like garbage. Like, they fundamentally changed the lighting of the scene, and it was just horrible. It's also interesting because I don't think I saw it in his video. There's one example where it's like a soldier in front of a plane or something, and the lighting is just so horrendously bad compared to the example. So, like, I feel like in this case, he's also kind of cherry picking, right? The primary problem is that NVIDIA showed off this technology way too early, and they didn't even show any of the technical aspects or behind the scene. Like I remember when they first showed off an example of their, like, human creation stuff, like the materials, like a decade ago. I don't know if you remember that. Not to be disrespectful, but there was a bald guy that was, like, kind of the focus, and they were showing off, like, subsurface scattering and pores and, like, the flexibility of the face and how realistic the face looked. Like, it was actually crossing beyond the uncanny valley and becoming really good. And they spent a ton of time going over how that technology worked and all the details about it. And, like, that's the NVIDIA I remember, right? But then here they're just literally showing it's a technical conference. Yet Jensen Huang spent 90% of it trying to tell everyone how great the industry is going to get in the future, how much money they're going to make, and just talking about all of the companies that they work with. And it's just like, where did they go? Like, are they seriously just like, is that what they're doing now? They're just going for profit, right? Like that's the even if, you know, I don't know everything, there's so much stuff behind the scenes. That's literally what it looks like. You know, that this is kind of the point of PR, is like, you're supposed to craft a narrative, and the narrative they're crafting is that they don't give a shit about any of their roots, where they came from. Even though they talk about like CUDA being 20 years old and whatever, like they don't care about the gamer, which may seem silly, but we can't forget that like NVIDIA started by accelerating 3D graphics. Like that was kind of their powerhouse, right? That was kind of the whole point of getting an NVIDIA card, because they were like the top of the line cards that did the best, right? They had a brand associated with them. They pioneered a lot of technology, right? They created technology out of thin air because they knew that's what they had to do. And like, in this case, they're just taking AI, making it run faster, even though it still requires two 5090s. It's just so disappointing. And I think the reason this is having such a reaction is not only because NVIDIA is like losing their spine in this context, but Digital Foundry kind of praised the technology for no reason. Like they didn't critique it pretty much at all. And then the reason I think that this has become such a big problem is there's so many things building up to this, right? NVIDIA just kind of slapped it in there to show it off, to make them look better, so that way people would invest in them more, you know, either literally or through being a partner. Digital Foundry kind of just praised it without really critiquing it at all, and people have multiple reasons to be mad about that. It comes just at the cost of being AI, which, you know, sure, there might be some people who might have very particular opinions about it and be a little bit too, in my opinion, like, I also am this type of person sometimes, and I'm realizing I need to stop, like, being so critical all the time of everything, because that's the popular thing to do, and you don't want to look bad in front of your other friends, so why would you give it any degree of whatever? Granted, the fundamental way generative AI came around, which is another reason, is by stealing swaths of copyrighted content. And then even beyond that, it's just, which comes back to the second part, I guess, that I was trying to talk about earlier, was this just comes at a horrible time when we're literally seeing corporations min-max their profits right in front of us by trying to remove as much leverage from the common person as possible. Like, there is now a distinct lack of, like, especially because of AI, there's a huge gap in like the junior or apprentice market, right, for everything. And this will include game graphics, right? Like, you are now going to have people doing very basic rendering or artistic direction because they're taking this AI slop reference materials and just pumping it into a game with a very basic base layer and then telling the AI what they want out of it. Like, that's the future we're headed towards, which, like, sure, that's technologically impressive, but it like removes the soul from everything. It removes the ability for the common person to be creative, and it's just not putting humans first, right? Like, that, we're supposed to be putting ourselves first. You know, we're supposed to be taking care of each other. And by literally just kind of destroying the art industry in its entirety with this stuff, there's no protections in place. Like, you know, a lot of people will say, like, don't be in the way of innovation and the progress of technology. And I don't entirely disagree. Like, you know, this technology is wonderful. I'm glad that, like, we're researching it, because I think it is important to a degree. But at the same time, it's like we're just throwing everyone by the wayside that gets in the way, and that's not fair. Like, we have laws about water access and like quality of life and protecting people, and the only reason we have so many of these protections in the first place is because we lived through times where those protections didn't exist, and we as a society kind of decided, like, it would probably be better for everyone if we just increased everyone's quality of life. You know, like, if we just allowed people to kind of thrive and be the best version of themselves that they can, because the more protections you provide, the more comfortable people are, and the more innovative people can be, right? But this is the antithesis of everything that's going on with this technology right now. And I think it's kind of unfair for Philip to kind of take a perspective that is still kind of praising this technology in a way and dismissing pretty much all criticism because some people might have death threats. And like, that's not to downplay the death threats. Like, it's important that we recognize that those are bad. Like, those are really bad, and that shouldn't be happening, and whatever. But why not also try to understand why it's so charged in the first place? Like, why are people so upset about this? And it's because it's true. Like, AI is literally displacing people's jobs, and the technology is wonderful. It can do a lot of wonderful things in the right hands, but it's also proving that it's absolutely horrendous in the wrong hands, and that no one's taking the care to actually be careful, because it's just a money machine, right? Like, it generates, I literally saw I don't know what the company was, but they do something with homes and like ceiling things or whatever. And they had a truck with a trailer, and the trailer had an AI generated image of them. It was two people who were the people that run the business, and they had like a circle logo with two people in it that were AI generated. And it's just like, you couldn't spend $500 just commissioning some art from an artist and getting something genuinely unique. Anyway, I guess my point is, I think this technology is wonderful. I have seen it coming that we are going to reach the limits of rasterized rendering, which was already evidenced by ray tracing coming about. But now we're at a point where we can literally just take a base image and add details to it out of thin air. And even further, kind of like they were suggesting, we could take game engine information and present it, or however we want, to this AI and be able to actually do something productive with it. And I think maybe in a few years they will fix this technology and make it actually better. But the point isn't whether or not this technology is good. The point is all of the motivations and context around it. That's why it is so charged right now. That's why I think it's important for us to try to take each other seriously and not just yell at each other, right? I think that people that want the technology and to push the technology forward, their voices are important, but also you should not be dismissing all the people who have a critical opinion of this technology. And then on the flip side, maybe sending death threats to these people is not such a good idea. And maybe, like, I agree that there are a lot of bad things about AI, especially like if you look at Ben Jordan doing experiments and data gathering about infrasound, like over 100 decibel sub 20 hertz frequencies that are causing health problems for poor people that live around these data centers. Like, that's fucked up, right? There are reasons to be mad, absolutely. And I think those concerns should be taken seriously. But also, like I was saying, like, there are more productive ways to get your opinion out. But also, there's a third aspect to this. People are emotional by nature, and kind of the only way that some people can communicate effectively, and the only way that some people can receive communication effectively, is through strong emotions. I don't think death threats are okay, but I also entirely understand why people are upset and why they are so viscerally upset, including myself to a degree. Like, I'm at the point where I can barely even find a decent job because I dropped out of college, and that's a mistake of myself, but also, like, I was depressed at the time, right? I'm at a point where, like, I can't find a job because a lot of the jobs that I could probably qualify for, especially junior software engineer stuff, is literally being erased by AI, and I can't even get a foothold. I would have to go so many steps ahead and try to functionally become a senior engineer before I can even try to get a job back in software engineering again. And I think it's disappointing. So there's a lot of aspects of this where, like, I see a lot of good in it, and I also see a lot of bad in it. And I wish that people would stop plugging their ears and assume, like, I think it's horrible that Philip and Digital Foundry received death threats and such horrendous comments. But at the same time, maybe they didn't stop to think about why they're getting that in the first place, right? To blindly praise this technology and not give it a fair critique is doing a disservice to all of the context I just explained about the history of AI and how it's fundamentally destroying the economy and the job market and everything, right? It's dismissing a lot of very deep feelings that people have. Like, the only reason these people are so mad to a degree is because these things are legitimately screwing up people's lives. And I hope people understand that. I hope this was informative. I hope I could provide a perspective on this that was useful. I'm not trying to be a neutral middleman per se. I mean, I am trying to do that because I wish that we could have a little bit more sensible conversations around this stuff. But at the same time, these are things I actually believe. Like I've been trying to learn how to play devil's advocate and give people the benefit of the doubt. So even if there's people who I think might be horrendous people, I still at least try to hear them out and challenge their perspective properly because they deserve it, right? You should treat every human, even the worst people, with the dignity to give them a fair chance, because if you give them a fair chance and they still turn out to be a horrible person, you have a lot more reason to hate them, right? And if they turn out to be good, then you have even more reason to defend them, you know? So that's what I think, you know, I think with how the internet works today, we're very divided, and I wish that's part of the reason why I stay on Blue Sky, because sure, it can be an echo chamber at times, and it's kind of difficult to look past all of the horrible, horrible things that are constantly on my feed because the world is functionally ending to a degree. It's nice because I actually get to have real conversations with people rather than on X, where every other reply is someone trying to bait you and make you feel like shit. Hopefully all of that expresses why this is such a complex topic and why it can't just be as simple as being angry or defending your side at all costs. I think criticism is important, but we have to be measured in that and not be disrespectful. And I think that goes for both sides, or all sides, really. So, yeah, I hope this was a useful perspective, and thank you for watching if you got it this far. Thank you.